The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the abandoned town. Dust devils danced in the dry, cracked streets, stirring up remnants of a time long forgotten. Elena adjusted her backpack, squinting against the glare while Mark fiddled with his camera, capturing the eerie beauty of the ghost town. "This place gives me the creeps," Elena muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Isn't that why we're here? To document the paranormal?" They were researchers, drawn to the town by rumors of restless spirits and mysterious disappearances. The town's name had long been scrubbed from maps, its history buried under layers of dirt and time. Yet, for those who knew where to look, the legends were all too real. They reached the center of town, where a crumbling church towered over the ruins. The doors creaked open with a sound like a dying breath. Inside, the air was cooler, but it carried a scent of decay and neglect. Broken pews lay scattered, and faded murals hinted at a more prosperous past. Elena's flashlight flickered as she scanned the room. "I read that this town was wiped out in a single night," she said. "The residents were accused of witchcraft and massacred by neighboring townsfolk." Mark nodded, setting up his equipment. "And now, their spirits are said to haunt the place, seeking revenge." A sudden thud echoed through the church, making them both jump. Mark's camera light swept across the room, but there was nothing there. Just shadows. "Probably just a rat," Mark said, though his voice wavered. Elena moved towards the altar, where a dusty book lay open. As she reached for it, the temperature plummeted. Her breath fogged in the air, and she felt a presence behind her. "Mark," she whispered, but when she turned, he was gone. Panic surged through her. "Mark!" "This isn't funny." Silence answered her, thick and oppressive. She grabbed the book, hoping it might offer some clue. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, detailing the horrors that had befallen the town. A faint cry echoed from outside. Elena ran to the door, heart pounding. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the town in twilight. Shadows lengthened, twisting into grotesque shapes. "Mark!" she called again, her voice swallowed by the encroaching darkness. She stumbled through the streets, the book clutched to her chest. Every corner seemed to harbor unseen eyes, watching, waiting. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a figure standing at the edge of town, illuminated by a pale, sickly light. She approached cautiously, recognizing Mark. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. His eyes were wide with terror, his skin pale and clammy. "Elena, we need to leave. Now." Before she could respond, a cold hand gripped her shoulder. She spun around, but there was no one there. The air grew heavy, pressing in on her from all sides. Whispered voices filled her ears, chanting in a language she couldn't understand. Mark grabbed her hand, pulling her towards their car. The ground seemed to shift beneath them, the very earth rebelling against their presence. They reached the vehicle, but as Mark fumbled with the keys, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a woman, her face twisted in rage and sorrow. Her eyes burned with an unnatural fire, and her mouth moved, forming words that Elena couldn't comprehend. "Leave us," the spirit hissed, "or join us." Mark finally got the door open, and they tumbled inside. The engine roared to life, and they sped away, the town shrinking in the rearview mirror. But as they left, Elena glanced back one last time. The woman stood in the center of the road, watching them with eyes that promised vengeance. The whispers grew louder, following them even as they drove miles away. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of their hotel. Mark collapsed onto the bed, trembling. "What did you see in that book?" Elena opened it again, her hands shaking. The final pages detailed a ritual, one meant to summon and bind the spirits of the unjustly killed, but it required a sacrifice, one of blood and pain. "We need to destroy this," Elena said, her voice firm, despite her fear. As they burned the book, the air seemed to lighten, the oppressive weight lifting, but neither could shake the feeling that they had only delayed the inevitable. Days passed, and they returned to their normal lives, but the memories of that night haunted them. Elena would wake in the middle of the night, hearing those whispered voices. Mark would see shadows moving in the corner of his eye. One evening, as Elena prepared for bed, she noticed a new mark on her skin, an intricate symbol that matched the ones in the book. She stared at it, dread pooling in her stomach. From the darkness, a familiar voice whispered, "Join us."